Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. The Superman movie was released on digital recently, so James Gunn revealed a whole bunch about the movie. We've had a chance to watch it a couple more times, zoom and enhance a lot in the background, and there are so many details, references, and Easter eggs that we didn't spot the first time when it was in theaters, so we'll break it all down. There's so much packed in here, you could probably watch it like a billion more times and still find more stuff, and there's still stuff James Gunn will probably be revealing years down the line. He even just revealed he's already working on Superman 2, the next big Superman movie. It's going to be a big team-up with Supergirl and Krypto. We'll see if Brainiac does wind up being the villain of that, but there's a lot of stuff happening right now. That might wind up coming out in 2027 because there is a mystery movie that they just dated for July 2027. So because we have the Batman 2 coming out that year, we might have both a Superman movie and a Batman movie coming out in the same year again. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. But the first bits of lore that James Gunn recently revealed, or the reason why he's releasing the movie on digital so quickly after it's in theaters, because it's about to break a couple records in domestic theaters, so it seems like the movie's doing well. Why wouldn't they leave it in theaters longer before releasing it on digital? And it turns out our old friend Peacemaker is to blame. Blame Peacemaker for everything if you want to. There's a bit of a joke about that in the movie too, because Peacemaker during his cameo scene says that Superman is obsessed with him because he's way more jacked than Superman, which of course is a ridiculous statement because Superman is vastly more powerful. But I actually think in the movie that comment was meant to call out people in real life that were mad that David Corenswet didn't look physically more jacked inside the Superman suit during the actual movie. There are a lot of references in the movie that felt like they were calling out real-life trolls, like the monkey trolls inside Lex's pocket dimension, just going crazy on social media. James Gunn then revealed that after he decided to make the Superman movie and they announced publicly that he would be the new Kevin Feige of DC, one of the first calls that he got was from Ryan Reynolds, who was congratulating him on the job, and he said that Ryan Reynolds said that he hoped that James Gunn would make a Superman movie because this was before they had publicly announced that he was making a Superman movie. So it turns out that Ryan Reynolds, big Superman fan. Too bad his Hal Jordan Green Lantern never got to spend screen time with the Superman. It would have eventually been Henry Cavill's Superman just based on when the timing all worked out. But he also revealed that while that conversation was happening, the next comment was James Gunn saying, "Are you going to come back and play Green Lantern for me again?" To which Ryan Reynolds said, "Get the hell out of here." Kyle Chandler is going to be playing an older Hal Jordan during the Green Lantern HBO series. There are many Green Lantern Corps references during the actual movie, not just for Guy Gardner, but the larger body of Green Lantern Corps. We will actually be watching those episodes next year at some point. I will do episode videos for it when it does release. And he said the other big phone call that he got right after they announced that he had gotten the job was from Jason Momoa demanding that he get to play Lobo, saying, "You said I could always play Lobo," and James Gunn's response was, "I always said that you would make a great Lobo," and basically said it was okay and they did the deal. Now we're going to see him as the Lobo character in the Supergirl movie and probably many other movies after that too. Also, one of the reasons why James Gunn said he's going to wait a beat before introducing a new version of Aquaman to the DCU, just because he's doing so much stuff with Jason Momoa Lobo right now, and we just saw Aquaman 2, The Lost Kingdom.
The other was Jason Momoa's like, Lobo!
There are a lot of you that said that you saw a lot of Martian Manhunter references in the movie. Lex makes a tall, dark, and Martian reference. That was Martian Manhunter. There were many Chacos going on in the movie just in general. Background ads. They were inside the Chacos' offices at the beginning of the movie. The movie was littered with Martian Manhunter world building, so I think the idea is that he's been active on the planet for a long time, but he hasn't revealed himself publicly, and they'll probably just use a future movie to actually introduce the character in a formal way, like maybe the next Super Family movie. As a lot of you have remembered, James Gunn said that he was going to be doing Booster Gold at some point in the future. During the movie, when Lex Luthor is doing his highlight reel for Planet Watch and for Ultraman, for the clone of Superman, he throws a truck that says Dupree on the side. It's actually for Dupree Chemical, which is connected to Booster Gold in the comics. We will see where Booster Gold winds up showing up inside the next TV shows or movies at some point, but he will show up eventually. He is supposed to cross over with Blue Beetle, who's coming back from the events of the Blue Beetle movie. James Gunn said that all of Lex Luthor's henchmen are named people from the comics, relatively minor characters, but one of the best Easter eggs is for the new version of Otis, who is named Otis Berg in the movie. Two names, Otis first name, Berg last name. but it's one of the many, many references and jokes for the Christopher Reeve Superman movie, where Otis in that movie tries to create an Otis Berg as part of the real estate plot that Lex Luthor has in that film. They also reference that real estate plot with Lex Luthor in this new movie, who is trying to take over part of that foreign country and become the king of that country. They explain in the movie that was a bit of a red herring, though. Lex Luthor didn't actually care about getting that real estate. It was just an excuse to get the government to allow him to kill Superman, but he would still have gotten the real estate at the end of the day. During the bonus features, James Gunn talks about doing a super family team-up movie. It's implied that the villain might wind up being Brainiac because he's also there with a concept art of the super family movie. Brainiac, he revealed, was originally going to be the main villain of this first Superman movie, so it makes sense that he would just bring him back as one of the subsequent movies. Like, oh, well, I didn't use him this time, so we'll just do him in the next movie. There are also a lot of you that wondered if Brainiac was the reason why Superman's message from Jor-El and Lara got damaged during transit. Did it have something to do with something that Brainiac did? There was a lot of talk about Superman's costume and him wearing the trunks. Obviously, they went with a more all-star Superman-looking version with the Kingdom Come symbol for the House of El, which Supergirl also has. Like, her costume design language is based on his. They said that when they were designing the costume, the reason why they went with the red trunks is because they felt like the blue suit without the trunks just looked like a regular blue super suit, not an iconic Superman suit. Like, even just the symbol in the blue suit didn't look Superman enough for them. So the costume designers, like the technical people, wanted the red for the stark contrast where you just see it from afar and you identify him as Superman even if you can't actually make out his symbol. James Gunn said that he was back and forth on the trunks and talked to Zack Snyder, who said that when he was doing Henry Cavill's Man of Steel, just could not come up with a way to make the trunks work. That was because in context, his super suits were built by Kryptonians. They were Kryptonian fabric made by Kryptonians. They said that during the events of this movie, they wanted the suit to have a homemade feel, and it was made by humans. Like the Kryptonian robots didn't make Superman's suit, his family did. That is why you see way more seams, way more creases than Henry Cavill's Superman suit. And it was actually David Corenswet who really argued for the use of the trunks because he said he wanted to make him feel more like a lucha libre, like an actual Mexican wrestler that was more huggable, that kids would not be afraid of because he is so powerful. That's kind of the way they talked about him, a more huggable Superman. Probably one of the biggest arguments, though, that they had on set was the final speech. So a lot of people were talking about this online. It was hotly debated recently just because they released this clip, and James Gunn released it himself too, because after they worked out their disagreement, David Corenswet and James Gunn both said it was one of their most fun days on a film set of any kind ever.
Your feelings about feeling bad are okay. It's not wrong for you to feel that way.
What they were arguing about was Superman's final speech to Lex Luthor. James Gunn had to explain to him why it was so important that in the moment, why it was important to Superman, in context, to be so passionate about being afraid, scared, confused, making mistakes all the time, talking about how his faults made him just as human, metaphorically, as everyone else, even though he's an alien. And it was not okay for the Lex Luthors of the world to tell people that it's bad to have these emotions and bad to want redemption, bad to want to make mistakes and then do better. So the whole idea is that it was meant to be very inspirational and Superman wearing his feelings on his shoulders, so to speak. The whole reason why people were making a big deal about it is because most people have never actually been on a film set and never actually seen a director working with actors. This happens all the time where like actors won't understand why a character that they're playing is doing a certain thing, so director has to talk them through it, or the screenwriter, the people that actually wrote the scene, like, no, this is why your character feels this way and is doing this thing. So it's actually very normal that they're hashing stuff out in the middle of a scene. There was a lot of talk about Hawkgirl during the movie. I revealed in my last video, James Gunn said that the Justice Gang, and Hawkgirl specifically, will face very dire consequences because of her killing Gurkos, the Prime Minister of Baravia, in cold blood. Something will come back to bite them in the ass for that, usually in a legal way, but also in villains retaliating. They'll probably wait to address that in some future movie at some point. Isabella Merced also confirmed that her wings are made of nth metal, just like the comics, and she is playing the Kendra version of Hawkgirl. In the current incarnation, like as she exists right now during the events of this movie, she doesn't remember everything about her past lives or Hawkworld or even Hawkman. but she does have flashes of them. In the way that James Gunn explained, the reason why Hawkman isn't around is because he has not reincarnated yet. So like there is no Hawkman running around on the world at the moment. When it comes to Mr. Terrific, they've already confirmed that they're doing an HBO spin-off series for him, but the reason why they said he's so cold and angry during the movie, why he's so short with everyone, is because during the events of this film, he's still mourning the death of his wife, who died before the events of the film. Very clearly big details about his character and his history that they're waiting for the HBO series to dig into. There are many, many other Justice Society, Justice League, Justice Gang Easter eggs during the movie. I already did a full breakdown of all the metahumans and Justice Society characters on the mural. That's like a much longer video, so I'll link it below in the description. But there's a lot of Metamorpho Easter eggs in the background of the movie too. So inside Lois Lane's apartment, there's a bunch of newspaper clippings in a big Charlie Day conspiracy meme chartboard of projects that she's currently working on, and one of the investigations is into Stag Industries, going back to the early 2000s, even the 1990s. There's a lot of articles that talk about toxic waste spills, harmful chemical dumping, livestock deaths, and I think it's all meant to be Metamorpho backstory in the circumstances for his creation in the comics, because when the movie picks up, he's already been around and been a metahuman long enough to have gotten married to Sapphire Stag and for them to have their baby Joey. So the whole idea is that he had his origin story many, many years ago, and I think the idea is that you see all these boxes on her desk at the Daily Planet that say Stag Industries. Eventually she will uncover the circumstances of that. During the movie, he also goes into a Stag Industries building to hide from the crowd after everybody learns about his parents' message. And a lot of people are also talking about Batman now because of all the kryptonite references in the movie. So in the movie, Lex Luthor uses Metamorpho as his workaround for the fact that there is no more kryptonite supposed to be on planet Earth. But what probably happened is that the Superman robots helped Superman with his own technology and his abilities clean up all the kryptonite so that it wouldn't be around to potentially hurt him at some point. But because it would have taken them a long time to actually do that over the past 3 years, it's possible that Batman also got his hands on some kryptonite. I don't think that the Kryptonian robots and Superman got every single piece of kryptonite themselves. Like, there's probably a couple pieces that other people around the world got, other villains that they could potentially bring back in future movies. It would just make sense that Batman would be watching Superman his first 3 years and be wary of him, and then see kryptonite and want to get a piece of that just in case, like a just-in-case contingency kind of plan. Literally one of the parts of the plot during Batman v Superman with Ben Affleck's Batman, Henry Cavill's Superman in the Zack Snyder era. There's a piece of kryptonite on planet Earth, Batman is going to get his hands on it. There was a lot of talk about Ultraman in the movie. James Gunn did reference the comic book Ultraman from Earth 3, the other version of Superman from another universe. Obviously, there were a lot of different Easter eggs and versions of Superman that he combined to create the Ultraman character in the movie, because he's both a clone of Superman, so kind of another version. He kind of implies that he's turning into a version of Bizarro at the end of the movie because he falls into a black hole, into another universe, and it's all inside a pocket dimension filled with squares, so it just feels very Bizarro reference. And already he says that he's stronger than Superman, like Bizarro is stronger than Superman, but he's dumber, like Bizarro, who's also much, much dumber, and looks way more busted up. Like the trip through the black hole probably won't help, but also if you look at the way they did Ultraman, Lex in the movie implies that he was kind of a failed clone and didn't bake in the oven long enough, metaphorically, because some of his facial features are different. Like they use some prosthetics on David Corenswet's face. His teeth are a little more busted up, just not quite fully developed. Like even his brain hasn't fully developed, so he's not quite as good as David Corenswet's Superman. We will see when he winds up coming back in the movies or TV shows at some point, but do not be surprised if he shows back up looking more like comic book Bizarro. Also, there were some Doomsday Easter eggs in his Ultraman costume too, like the goggles, the way that mask gets busted up over time. Doomsday's costume kind of looks like that initially in the comics. They even actually did a version of this with Bizarro in Superman and Lois inside the Arrowverse, where that version of Bizarro turns into a version of Doomsday eventually. Speaking of Ultraman, they revealed the Hammer of Baravia suit and the Raptor suits are meant to be early prototypes of what will eventually become Lex Luthor's war suit from the comics. So eventually he'll just refine those designs, make them way more powerful, but not for many, many years. Like this is a long way off. Maybe some of Brainiac's technology, once that character's introduced, will help close the gap on that. One of the reasons why they said they made Lex Luthor the main villain of this movie is because they wanted him as a foundational villain for what they're building in a larger sense, like the overarching story for their next Justice League movie, implying that Lex will be a much bigger villain by the time they get to that Justice League movie. There are many background details and references that they included about Lex Luthor in the movie just as part of world building. You notice there's a picture of Mr. Handsome on his desk. Why is there a picture of Mr. Handsome on his desk? James Gunn revealed it's because Lex created Mr. Handsome in a petri dish when he was 12 years old, and since then it's the only creation of his or only thing that Lex has that he has any sentiment for, thus the picture on his desk. Like it's the only thing that he cares for at all. Rewatching the movie, it just makes all of the Mr. Handsome scenes that much more funny, just because you know that he is Lex Luthor's favorite thing of anything.
Mr. Handsome.
There are a couple more cameo scenes that I spotted during my rewatches of the movie. There's a Lloyd Kaufman cameo scene when Superman goes into the Stag building. He's one of the citizens banging on the glass outside, yelling at him from outside. So Lloyd Kaufman runs Troma Studios, where James Gunn got his start in Hollywood. So that's why James Gunn always lets Lloyd Kaufman cameo in all of his movies. Like he cameoed during the Guardians of the Galaxy movies as a Ravager. He'll probably cameo in whatever future movies James Gunn does. Some of you longtime comic book fans probably spotted Jerry Siegel's grandsons in the movie. They were workers at the Daily Planet, just regular staff members that had desks. On their desk, notice there's a picture of real-life Jerry Siegel and his wife on their board, so Jerry Siegel is now canon to the DCU. Jerry Siegel's wife, Joanne, was also the original model for Lois Lane when they designed the character originally. Marvel kind of just did a version of this where they canonized both Jack Kirby and Stan Lee to the Fantastic Four's 828 universe. Like they're creating comics inside that universe when Silver Surfer shows up because a lot of the comic book art is based on real-life Jack Kirby art. Marvel's done this before too, where like Marvel Comics is canon to the MCU. Like there is a company called Marvel Comics creating comic books based on the heroes of the Marvel Universe, but they're all real in the context of the MCU. That's kind of going on inside the DC movies too. There are a number of behind the scenes where you actually see David Corenswet in a bald cap fighting with Ultraman during one of their fights in the movie, but that's not meant to be a Connor Kent Easter egg, but it does feel a lot like Connor Kent, like Superman's symbol with the bald Lex Luthor looking head. Earlier in the movie, Lex Luthor also puts his hands up to Superman's like he's weirdly obsessed with him. That all feels like a coincidence. If they do a version of Superboy at some point, we will see how James Gunn tries to spin that, because there are a number of different versions of Superboy in the comics. Like you can do the Connor Kent, the Con-El version, or you can do the son, eventually, of the David Corenswet version of Superman and Lois Lane. That would actually take a little bit longer to get to, like 20 plus years worth of David Corenswet Superman, unless they did some sort of flash forward as part of the Legion of Superheroes or something like that. There were a lot of Kryptonian references just in general in the movie, mostly as part of the Fortress of Solitude in Jor-El and Lara's message. A lot of talk about that. I just did a big video about it. But when you watch a shiny HD version, you can actually see when they're watching the Kryptonian supercomputer, when they're on the monitors, in the footage in the background. Now remember, this is taken on Krypton, footage from Krypton that was captured, then put in Superman's pod. You can actually see behind Jor-El, there are symbols from the different houses on Krypton, and one of them looks kind of like a Z, as in the House of Zod. I think it's meant to be a Zod teaser. When it comes to other big Justice League characters like the other Green Lanterns, the other versions of the Flash, I've already talked about them in previous videos because there are a couple different versions of the Flash that they feature in the Hall of Justice on that giant mural. There are a couple background Easter eggs though around Metropolis just in terms of some of the businesses and world building for Central City and other Flash related things. During the kaiju fight, when you spend a lot of time around the streets of Metropolis, there's an ad for Jitter's Coffee, which was featured heavily during the Flash TV show. It's like one of the big locations of the show for every single season. There's a Zesty Cola billboard, which is from the Batman comics. They're meant to be a huge competitor to Soder Cola, who also has an ad inside the baseball stadium. They're kind of like the Coca-Cola and Pepsi of the DC universe, just competing brands. Speaking of the Arrowverse in The Flash, that big kaiju fight is happening right in front of a Big Belly Burger in that park. They featured that heavily on all the Arrowverse shows. There's also billboards for the donut shop Doe's Holes that Lex Luthor then talks about later, bringing Gurkos one of the donuts there when they meet. That big kaiju fight also happens in front of the Lord Tech building. You notice one of the news anchors has a Lord Tech laptop, so they're kind of pitching it like Maxwell Lord is the Steve Jobs Apple situation, like he runs an Apple Lord Tech kind of company inside the DC universe. Currently, he's also using his money to fund the Justice Gang, but I think the idea is that eventually Batman will take that over and Batman will be the one to fund the Justice League like he does in the comics.
I bought the bank.
There are also a lot of you that wondered if the person that Cat Grant was complaining about, the rich butthole and the bad date that she went on, was Bruce Wayne, just because that's the kind of person that she would be trying to go out with inside the DC universe. Rich, famous, but because he's Bruce Wayne, his whole playboy persona, it would make sense why he would be seen in public with someone like Cat Grant. James Gunn actually explained that during the events of this movie, Batman is around, he's been active for a long time, it's just that they haven't actually done him on screen yet because they're not ready to. He's meant to show up for the first time as an actor, like you'll see his face on screen for the first time during Batman Brave and the Bold. After the movie was released, James Gunn revealed a couple more deleted scenes that were way too hardcore, way too R-rated for them trying to make the PG-13 rating. When they're inside the Pocket Universe and Lex Luthor is interrogating Superman and shoots the street vendor, he makes Gurkos clean up the blood by rolling around in it. Like he tells Gurkos, clean it up, and he just lies down and literally, while he's wearing his clothes, just rolls through the blood to soak it up with the clothes themselves. Definitely would not have worked inside a PG-13 movie. At the end of the movie, the number 4 robot reveals the newspaper article is about Malik, written by Clark Kent, Superman, naming him as the true hero of the day for his sacrifice in the film. You also notice at the end of the movie when Supergirl shows up, the anvil that Krypto's bed sits by is based on the anvil from All-Star Superman, where he forges many suns to feed the Sun Eater, so it's meant to be an extremely strong metal, like nth metal, that can withstand that much force that you can use it to create suns. Which is also something that Metamorpho does in the movie in a really creative kind of way with his powers. A simulated sun, essentially, not an actual sun. When it actually comes to Millie Alcock's Supergirl, I believe they've already changed her Supergirl suit just a little bit, like tweaked it a little bit for the events of the Supergirl movie, because there's a different creative team working on that, and super suits tend to change just a little bit movie to movie. But I do think they're sticking with the same Kingdom Come symbol on all their suits going forward. But in the next big Super Family team-up movie, they will also probably give Superman a slightly new design language on his suit too. If you actually look at some of the alternate designs for the Superman suit in the first movie, some of the alternates, especially the ones without trunks, look a little bit more like the New 52 Superman suit. There are many other cameos during the movie. I already talked about most of them. A lot of Smallville stuff going on in the film too. Michael Rosenbaum, longtime James Gunn collaborator, also cameoed as Raptor number 1. He's the guy that shouts at Mr. Terrific when he first shows up to their base to actually go into the pocket dimension. You don't actually see Michael Rosenbaum's face on screen, you just hear his voice. Really hoping at some point that some other longtime DC actors like Grant Gustin or other people who have played DC characters before show up in cameo in other future productions. I know people wanted Grant Gustin to come back as a version of The Flash or Barry Allen in future productions. We will see about that. He said that he would come back for James Gunn, but it just depends on what he wants to do with this new version of Barry Allen in the DCU. Most of the Easter eggs in the movie, as I talked about in my previous videos, seem to indicate that James Gunn might be putting Wally West Flash on his new Justice League, not Barry Allen, but we'll see about that. If you're bummed they're not doing Flash for a little bit longer, it's all because of the Flash movie. Blame Ezra Miller for them just waiting longer to introduce a new version of the Flash. Really small concession though, metaphorically, because they are going to be doing a version of Gorilla Grodd on the Jimmy Olsen TV show they're doing on HBO, which would be more of like a Daily Planet true crime kind of show with Jimmy Olsen investigating different DC villains episode to episode. Gorilla Grodd is just going to be one of the big ones. We'll probably see a bunch more support characters from other people's comics like Green Lantern characters, Batman characters, Flash characters showing up in different TV shows and movies before you actually see some of those other real big new versions of A-list Justice League characters show up. And one of the other biggest arguments that James Gunn said he got into with other executives when he was making the movie was when they were screen testing it, and it was all because of the squirrel scene during the kaiju fight where Superman saves the squirrel. Everybody, when they were filming this, saw them behind the scenes and wondered if the squirrel was going to be a Green Lantern reference, because there is a squirrel who does become a Green Lantern. In the movie, it's just meant to be a regular squirrel, and James Gunn said that the reason why he had this scene was just to show how Superman cared for all life, no matter how small or insignificant. Like, he wanted to protect everything. But he actually said when they were screen testing the movie, most of the people who were watching it hated the squirrel scene, so all the studio executives were like, well, let's just take it out of the movie. If people don't like it, we'll take it out. But James Gunn kept arguing, no, we need to leave it in, just because he wanted to show how Superman cared for all life so much. You can let me know if you think he was right to leave the squirrel scene in the movie. Mostly it just got a huge laugh in all the screenings that I went to. Like, it was just a really funny moment. Speaking of animals, though, there was a reference to the Kryptonian zoo that he has inside the Fortress of Solitude, where he keeps a lot of creatures, because when they kill the kaiju, he's like, why didn't we try to save it? We could have put it in a zoo or something like that. That was meant to be a reference to the zoo from All-Star Superman inside the Fortress of Solitude. They spent a lot of time designing his new version of the Fortress of Solitude for this movie. We'll probably explore other parts of the fortress in future movies. It's a little bit different from Batman's Batcave in that because of Kryptonian technology and the crystal-based technology, it can grow TARDIS style to be as big or small as he wants it to be. So if he needs more room for something or extra rooms, he'll just grow them and it's no big deal. But because there are so many Easter eggs and references in this movie, like I said, you could watch it 10 billion more times and still find stuff in the background. I've already done several big Easter egg and breakdown videos, so I'll try to link all those down in the description below. Should cover the majority, like 99% of the Easter eggs in the movie. If you have spotted any that I didn't reference in this video or my previous Superman videos, just let me know in the comments and I'll add them to my future bonus videos. There'll be a lot of questions about what's happening with Superman 2, this big Superman team-up movie. We will see if it does wind up being that mystery July 2027 movie. There are a couple other big ones that he just announced, like the new Wonder Woman movie will happen sooner rather than later, so at some point we will learn about what's going on with her inside this universe. My early guess is it's also going to be a little bit longer before he does a new Flash movie or attempts the Flash in some other movie if he doesn't do a Flash solo movie. I would not be mad if he wants to do a brand new Flash TV series. Would be great opportunity to bring back some of those Flash actors. Some of them are fantastic. Also more opportunities to bring back some of the Smallville and other DC related series actors too. Just because there's still so many more Justice League characters for him to introduce, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of them show up in that next big Superman movie. There's a bunch of stuff coming up. We have Peacemaker Season 2 episodes happening next week. There's going to be a lot of Superman crossover, both in characters and storylines, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that. I'll be doing videos for all the episodes, just like Peacemaker Season 1. I will explain what's canon and what's not canon from the DCEU during all those episodes. It's not quite as complicated as people think. Everybody click here for my Superman alternate ending video, and click here for that brand new Peacemaker Season 2 video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.